Hello and welcome to the Sclerosis Firestarter. I'm Rich Mogul, and per Mike Rothman's suggestion, I didn't go hello in a really loud voice to introduce this week. So it is, what is it, March 16th already. So normally some years we've already finished RSA. Now we still have a little over a month to go. But joining me as they do every week, first, Mr. Rothman. Mike.
Hello! Oh, is that good? Was I able to blow out everybody's eardrums since you opted out of that, Rich? Hello, how is everybody doing?
I can't respond to that. Adrian, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm glad you didn't do that WebEx, welcome to WebEx, blowing out our eardrums again today too. And happy first day of summer here in Phoenix. And I know it's not really the first day of summer, it's just summer here already. What is it?
Yeah, it's 9:40 in the morning. It's 76 degrees, so
And
gonna
it's
hit
gonna
90 today.
probably hit 90 today.
Yeah.
So
Note
yeah,
to
it's beautiful.
Living on the surface of the sun is a choice. Let's just be clear about that.
no,
We
being
we
married to my wife is a choice. Surface of the sun was not the option. All right. So, by the way, I have to be. I was amused. I did a BBC thing, like it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where one of those Skype interviews, and I know it's like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. over in London or in England where this was playing, and as soon as I get off and I'm here, I'm basically, in my office. I've got all the kids' pictures on top, and 2 seconds after the interview ended, somebody comes up on Twitter. Did you seriously just do a BBC interview with all your kids' pictures in the background? I'm like, all right, so somebody who knows me was watching BBC at 1 in the morning over in the UK and
Bothered to send,
actually tweeted. My
yeah.
kids were thrilled when they found out, oh, because it was before bedtime here. Hey, somebody just told me they saw all your artwork and on the TV in England. That was pretty amusing.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. What are we talking about today?
Money, money, money,
Oh,
man. Jim
money.
Cramer, Mad Money.
I'm not
Cyber.
mad. Yeah, cyber. Yes, let's talk about cyber money. Because last week there was actually a pretty hefty deal, right? So our friends at Blue Coat, basically got acquired, by Bain Capital. Their private equity investors, Thoma Bravo, basically kind of sold out their shares to Bain Capital for 2.4 billion. That's B, billion with a B, billion. That's a huge friggin' number.
Point 4 Instagrams.
Right. It's a huge number. So again, as we're chatting, trying to figure out what we want to talk about today, it's just really an interesting aspect. Obviously, Thoma Bravo has been very active in the security space. There are a number of other private equity firms that are doing deals, have done deals, continue to look at deals because we get a reasonable number of calls to question whether we can help out with technical diligence as well on some of those deals. So we know there's a lot of activity going on in the space. But, it gets to the question, right? Is it sustainable? Is it just, kind of constant cyber and everybody feels like they need to have exposure to the business? Where are we in that curve, right? You always have the smart money that comes in early. And again, Thoma clearly seems to be, of the PE folks, the smart money in terms of the security guys getting out of Tripwire, getting out of now Blue Coat, just getting, significant liquidity at huge multiples. They did the Sonic Wall deal too, to Dell a while back. So these guys have, I think they did in trust too, right? Is that right, Adrian?
They did entrust too. I mean,
Yeah.
remember they picked them up for some
Yeah,
money.
like a couple of Starbucks cards and
Yeah.
sold them off to Data Card. And obviously they're not public, so we don't know what the valuation metrics on those things were. But these guys have been very active. So the question is, they're clearly the smart money, but now you have a whole bunch of other folks that are coming in, and are they smart, right? Because, as with everything else, the early guys get, a bulk of the returns. The middle guys, they'll do okay, and the late guys end up, holding a bag of stinky manure, 14 or 18 or 24 months from now. So, I thought it would be an interesting topic to, talk about private equity a little bit, talk about the VCs, because, obviously we see a lot of early stage startups that amazingly enough look incredibly similar. All coming up with similar ideas, launching within what 3 to 4 months of each other, all heavily backed by kind of a group of VCs. So again, just a very interesting time in security. Very interesting, from a cyber standpoint in terms of the amount of money that's here. But the question is, do we think it's sustainable relative to kind of the fundamental health of the business?
Yeah, and it's interesting because this time it's not purely VC driven like it has been, kind of previously. I mean, look, PE's always been out there, private equity. One of the first kind of big cooler projects I did actually when I started Securosis was a PE firm brought me in to actually do an analysis of a company they invested in that later got sold off to somebody else, and it was fascinating because they have such a different perspective than when you work with the VCs in terms of kind of their holding and their strategies and the kind of growth rates they want to see and everything else. And so now we're seeing, I mean, would you say, Mike, that we're seeing PE firms popping out of security? Do you think that that's a trend, or do you think that it's just more of a shifting around in that part of the market? Because I mean, those guys pop out when they think it's hit that, when they think that growth's
Right.
back.
Well, remember they have different valuation expectations and tolerances, right? VCs will take something that's obviously very much earlier stage, and then kind of invest in it as growth capital. Obviously, private equity guys aren't going to pay a 10x multiple on sales for one of these things, right? They want to, they need EBIT, right? So they need the company to actually be making money or have a clear path to make money. So we're seeing obviously kind of more financial engineering, and that's kind of the Blue Coat deal, which is Bain looking at it as truly a mezzanine thing, and their next step is to go public, and they'll get the liquidity there. Toma either wants to put that money to work, or they're wrapping up the fund that Blue Coat has, and stuff like that happens all the time, right? They're wrapping up the fund, so they need some liquidity out of that, so they do that deal at what is probably a 2 or 3x return on that investment, which for private equity is just a killer deal on that front. Again, so we see a lot of different aspects of where in the investment cycle it is. But another interesting thing is kind of carve outs, right? Where a private equity firm will look at maybe some security technology that's locked up within a much bigger entity and underperforming for lots of reasons, right? Then they'll buy it out and then kind of either fold it into another portfolio company that they have, or look to use that as a platform to start acquiring other things to layer it in and then magnify the value. So a lot of different moving pieces, but what you see is the mature companies that probably can't go public and aren't really interesting from an acquisition standpoint for a strategic acquirer start to look real good to those private equity guys, because they do have fairly strong revenue growth. They're probably not as efficient as they need to from a sales operation standpoint, so you can really start kind of driving better leverage on that front. And then you have very early stage things that the VCs still get involved in, and again, that's a crapshoot, right?
But get involved in kind of the key word there, right? Because the VCs, you've been in how many startups? I mean,
Too
you and
many.
I we've both been in two startups, and the VC often invest in a prayer and a guy who's got an idea, and they are pretty invasive a lot of times. And I think that's one of the things that's really struck me about Thoma Bravo more than anybody else, is that they have been coming in and not like completely dismantling the business. That from what we've seen from most of their acquisitions, that they're pretty hands off. They make them focus, maybe settle in on the core business value that they've got. But by and large, what we've seen coming out of private equity is pretty much an intact business, fully functional. Hasn't been gutted and stripped and milked as a cash cow, and I think that's fundamentally different than what we've seen from a lot of the VC and other types of money, cyber money investors.
But that's kind of normal. I mean, the VCs they're investing in much higher risk situations much earlier. They think they're smarter than everybody else at the same time. Where the PE guys come in, as Mike was saying earlier, only to companies that are basically profitable, where they think they can do restructuring and basically use that to potentially suck out more revenue. And they're different. I think Thoma Bravo has historically been pretty smart. Bain's on the line. I mean, sometimes they have gutted these companies. They milk the profitability and they spit it out on the other end. They kind of have a history of that. And so, the nature, and maybe that's one of the reasons for those transitions. But aside from all of that, what I find absolutely fascinating. So, on the analyst side, I've been in this industry, I think, for about 15 plus years now, or maybe around 15 years, is, look at the companies we're talking about. I mean, McAfee and Symantec are kind of, in many ways, falling off the rails in terms of what these companies are thinking about. We're seeing resurgences of other companies. I mean, IBM, we had all written off years ago. Their security business is quite strong these days. Now we have the private equity companies coming in. There's obviously the WebSense deal previously. I'm not sure how well that's worked out yet, but now also into the Blue Coat area. We do still see the VC activity going on, but in kind of different ways. I mean, it's clear. I mean, look, when the president is talking about this stuff, I mean, it's clear there's a market when it's in the headlines every single week of these failures. And what I think is, I'm not going to call it a dot-com boom. The dot-com boom was clearly unsustainable from a business standpoint. A lot of things didn't offer value, but it almost seems like we're kind of in the midst of this sort of shakeup in the security industry that I don't think it's hit its peak yet. I think the peak changes.
Yeah, I don't view it as a shakeup, right? I view it as a maturation where you have decade old companies that obviously need some operational focus. You've got a bunch of public companies and they'll continue to acquire and be acquired and kind of then get folded in. And you have kind of that constant stream of startups that go and fill kind of the innovation gap where we haven't seen that before.
Mike, we're mature like I was mature the day after my frickin' bar mitzvah. No.
I said maturation, not full maturity.
Yeah, no. You're giving this industry too much credit here.
No, but I mean, think about it, right? I was chatting with some of my pals at RSA over the over last week, and they're expecting 30,000+ people for the conference, right? Again, I mean, I think they've doubled the vendors, the number of people who are exhibiting there. Every aspect of the conference, anything you could buy is basically sold out at this point. So it is a long way from when there were 300 people in a San Francisco hotel talking crypto. Right, I mean, this is a business now, right? This is an industry. Yes, it's cyber, and yes, for us old schoolers, it's probably a little bit annoying that you all these carpetbaggers, kind of coming in trying to, get a piece of our action that we've spent the last, 20 years building. But all the same, again, I mean, I think that this is a fundamental kind of evolution of kind of the industry, and that means you're going to get dumb people coming in, throwing money around. You're going to get, kind of a lot of shysters that come in, with these ideas that, they think, that all of a sudden they know security. And, so then it just becomes like every other technology market, right? That we've seen in the past. It just happens to be ours, right? So we'll get a little cranky about, kind of the way our business. Oh, remember the good old days when we didn't have all these shysters? Yeah, no, that was never the case in security. So I don't know what those people are talking about.
It is interesting. The RSA theme this year has changed, and you had brought that up. And what we're talking about, and we didn't plan on tying this together to the conference itself. It was just that was an indicator point because you had talked about how much growth there is. By the way, I think it was less than 5 years ago. I think there were only like 10,000 to 12,000 people there. I could be wrong about that. Just back of envelope guessing. So that is huge. And
why not? If you have you gotten a hotel room in San Francisco or tried to get a hotel room in San Francisco around then you see 30,000 people.
Yeah, we had like super early access too compared to a lot of people. Even before speaker notifications came out, we got our registration codes, and sure enough, we still can. It was still really hard to get rooms. So, it's going to be really interesting to see. I'm looking forward to them closing off that street between North and South, like they do for Oracle World. Not that I will ever go back to that, but there's change. There's something going on. I think that the prominence is there. What fascinates me is, and we've talked about this in other ways, and it's fodder for a different discussion. I sometimes question if people are prepared for that, and that's a theme that we've been talking about for years in some of our posts and some of the things, which is, the outside pressure that's coming in, the money that's coming in, the fundamental need for what we do means that we can't just run around and have to tell people they got to change their passwords every 30 days. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how the industry evolves. Again, we've been talking that for a while. I mean, I did a whole thing last year where I said, you know what, in 10 years, it's not going to look anything like it looks today. And I couldn't have said that for the previous 10 years because it kind of did look a lot like it did. So I don't know, really interesting. The nature of the financial side of it. I don't, I used to not spend as much time on that even when I was back in Gartner days, but these days I find that that's becoming more and more important is to understand kind of how that affects the industry, the winners, the losers, and what's available for us to actually implement from a practical purpose the kinds of things that we can use to protect ourselves because there is actually a tie there when you look at it.
just
Anyway.
just to pimp some more stuff. Again, it's one of those things where you just kind of make it up and it sounds good at the time, and then you kind of step back a couple days later and you're like, wow, that kind of makes sense. But the theme that we came up with for this year's disaster recovery breakfast is be careful what you wish for. Right. And again, I mean, I think that that's a very apropos statement, not just relative to the money discussion we're having today or the industry growth that's, kind of reflective of our big industry show and how that's grown, but, just the visibility that security people are getting internal to their organizations now. Again, be careful what you wish for. Now that we've got it, you've got to make sure you know what you want to do with it. And that, again, that's a big area that we spend time, with clients on, is all right. You kind of said this cloud thing was important. Now they said, okay, do it. Right? What the hell does that even mean? Right? And again, we talk about malware, and that's a big part of what I'm doing. Kind of malware and incident response and a lot of those activities on a daily basis. And again, we're getting attacked, and they said, yeah, you got to go fix it. Well, what the hell does that mean? Right, so we have to be ready now that kind of we've got the spotlight on us, and that's a theme that we've been talking about over and over again.
Oh yeah,
For
years.
quite a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this stuff evolves. I mean, those are big numbers that will have an impact on the kinds of things you see, and to be honest, what the kind of tools and things that you use to protect yourselves. I mean, if you use any of them anyway, but it's just another indicator of our, post bar mitzvah hangover. I don't
know. Tomorrow's a big day. Everybody be safe. Enjoy.
Oh, that's right. St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. For us Guinness for us who want to be adopted Irish people, we'll be getting I'll be getting my Guinness on maybe at 11 in the morning.
I married an Irish girl, man. I am set. My daughter, first name Riley, was in her Irish dance class marching in a parade over the weekend, and needless to say, that's a national holiday in this house.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. All right. Well, and I'm on my taper for the marathon training, so I can actually enjoy drinking a few nights. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll talk to you later.